Hey guys, Level Cap here, and DICE has done something very cool to Battlefield 1. The new game mode Frontlines that came out in the French DLC was actually quite popular among fans. Many people requested that DICE port the game mode over to some of the vanilla maps. Well, they have done just that in the latest update for Battlefield 1 CTE. They've ported the Frontlines game mode onto the Amiens map as well as Argonne Forest. One of the great things about Frontlines is that it keeps the action focused, it keeps the action moving, and it can alternate between defense and offense for both teams. It's probably also the closest we'll get to simulating the style of trench warfare or sort of frontline style warfare of World War I. So if you like it from a pseudo-authenticity aspect, there's that too. I think DICE's choice to port the game mode to these two vanilla maps also makes a lot of sense. Both maps are orchestrated around heavy infantry combat, and they've got a lot of lanes and pathing that work well within the game mode. Argonne Forest is certainly a little bit more clustered than Amiens and a little bit more choke pointy. It worked pretty well for 32 players, but there's definitely moments where you could see some of the map design or placement wasn't working out particularly well. On Forest, some of the last telegraph points were in situations where it was very easy for the defensive team to start getting spawn camped, and it became near impossible to try and defuse the telegraphs once they are armed. So definitely some of the placement could be refined and adjusted to try and make it more fair for both teams. On Amiens, the lanes open up a little bit more, they get a little bit less clustered, but they have the addition of having a tank in the game mode. Now you might think a single tank for each side on a 32-man server isn't that big a deal. I had no problem going a perfect game without getting any deaths and completely locking down lanes on my own. I think this isn't necessarily a problem of the game mode balance so much as it is just the fundamental problem with tanks being incredibly powerful, and if you have somebody who knows what they're doing, it can be very easy for even a mediocre tank driver to kind of dominate around. I was locking down entire lanes here, preventing enemy from reinforcing and pushing the objective. If you position yourself in the right spot, it becomes near impossible for the other infantry to take you out. And if you're good enough to take out the enemy team's tank, or they pick a tank that's not as good as fighting you, and you manage to get rid of that threat early on, then you kind of have the whole map to yourself. So there's definitely a bit of danger with adding the armored vehicle to Amiens. I like the idea of having a tank in there. I've always enjoyed the tank and infantry balance of previous Battlefield games, but because some of the tanks are so incredibly powerful in this game, I think it can be overpowered if you have an extremely skilled tank driver. Either way though, I think it's really good that DICE is bringing this game mode over. Hopefully it doesn't allow 64 players on Frontlines just because that's going to be too crazy. I think 32 players played relatively well for the most part. Some of the rounds went a little bit quickly. The team balance wasn't particularly great, but then again, it's CTE and there wasn't a huge player pool to sort of balance out teams from. So that's basically how it went down. I think it's a great start to porting this game mode over, and hopefully Frontlines can become more of a staple for Battlefield 1. It's been a fan favorite, but I think they will need to port the game mode over to several more maps before it can really fill up or sustain some servers. If you just keep rotating between Amiens and Argonne Forest, that's going to be no fun for people with only the vanilla version of the game. So I think it's going to need at least 4 or preferably 6 maps to rotate through just to keep the server a bit more interesting. I'm looking forward to the evolution of vanilla Frontlines for Battlefield 1. I thank DICE for making the effort to port this game mode back over to the vanilla game, and hopefully Frontlines has a strong future in the Battlefield franchise. Preferably not just Battlefield 1, but maybe the next Battlefield title as well. As always guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. This is Level Cap, signing off.